We welcome everyone into another edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quiñones, and we encourage you guys to keep us locked in over the next 60 minutes. And as we mentioned, if you guys are just tuning in for the first time, it's a very rapid pace sports betting and gambling show. Obviously, during in season, we focus a lot on the NFL. You can always get social with us as well at RichQ on Q on IG and X, and of course TikTok, RichQ on a mic. And we are live coming at you in living color right here on NY48 WWON. And with that, we welcome in our very good friend Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 1029 FM The Game. Every Monday, 8 to 9, you hear him co-hosting BYP during the football season with me, and of course during the week on Q. And let me just start. We love to talk gambling lines. We love to start betting, but how about my New York Football Giants last night snapping a slide? And obviously, for those that know, when we air the show Saturdays and Sundays, we typically like to get into Thursday night games. It is a Friday edition of BYP to air for Saturday and Sunday, but the Giants just running roughshod, snapping that long prime time slide, winning a game at home. The crowd actually cheering for them, beating the Eagles 34-17 in a game, Lloyd, that if you took the Eagles and the 7.5, you feel pretty lousy on this Football Friday edition of Back Your Play. But that's a great win by the Giants last night.
And Q, you had a young team that just, they're going for it. They had nothing to lose. Coming in there 1-4, the Eagles are 4-1. The Eagles are like, all right, fluke loss. They thought to Denver. There were a couple things they talked about the officials, et cetera, of the game. But they kind of looked past the Giants, and the Giants went out there and they took it to them, particularly Jackson Dart. Calm, cool in the pocket, and he moves around great. He's using his mobility very well. And then Scatterboo, you can't talk enough about him, Q. He's running the ball downhill, setting everything up, and then the defense was just attacking.
Scatterboo is good for pretty much an anytime touchdown, and you should start playing Dart, first time score for the Giants. Back-to-back possessions and back-to-back games scoring touchdowns. You got a rookie quarterback beating the Eagles for the first time since 1950, right? I mean, it's ridiculous what we saw in that game, and good for the Giants putting up 34. They cover that number easily. They went on the money line. Everyone was able to cash in. I know we'll talk more about that game during On Cue, but as far as the NFL, here we go. I mean, week 6 is among us. We start with that early game in London. Denver coming off a very nice win against an Eagles team that has now dropped 2 straight after starting 4-0. The Broncos 3-2 on the road, if you will, in London, taking on the New York Jets 0-5. And it's bad right now with the Jets, with some injuries, with some inconsistent play. The Denver Broncos are laying 6.5, and the number is 43.5. Now, I want to bring that up for 1 minute. The Giants over, that total was 48 and bet down. I'm wondering if this total is going to be bet down to hit right around 39.40. But with all that being said, Denver's laying 6.5. Where are the Jets going to find some offense in this one?
Yes, the Jets have put up some stats, Q, but it's kind of been empty calories. It's been late in the games when it's been out of hand. Justin Fields, he's doing some nice plays with his legs, et cetera. But early in games, he's kind of inconsistent, and you're kind of seeing him and Wilson get on the same page late. I do like Breece Hall running the football in this one. But Denver, this is a tough matchup for them. We know the Jets and their offensive line and their protection issues. It's going to be tough with Bonito in Denver. Bonito leads the NFL in 7.5 sacks. He's bringing a lot of heat. Zach Allen as well, and Cooper for that defense. So there's a lot of teeth there. I expect some turnovers in this one, and I expect the Broncos to cover that number.
This might also be a game where you play defense or special teams touchdowns for Denver, and I'm leaning towards you. I think the Denver Broncos absolutely hammer the Jets. We said last week we love Dallas hammering the Jets. It's exactly what happened. This team is lifeless. The Cardinals, horrible loss. I mean, just what a debacle of a loss last week against the then winless Titans, and then the head coach getting fined, which I think is an absolute joke. But be that as it may, now they take on one of the surprises of the season. It's the 4-1 Indianapolis Colts, have been very good against the spread. Daniel Jones not turning the football over. They're running the football Taylor is pretty much good for plus money every time you bet him for a score or a rushing prop. They're laying 7.5. The total is 46.5 in this one.
Yes, and this is another game where you're like, okay, you have two teams going in different directions, and what a horrible loss. And you and I were texting each other back and forth during that game, and it looks like Gannon has lost control of this Cardinals team. You talked about that fine earlier, and they just couldn't get the job done. And that was the Tennessee Titans, who are one of the worst teams in the league. And now you have the Indianapolis Colts coming. Well, it's a home game for them, 7.5 point favorite, and you would expect them to cover this number because Daniel Jones, he's protecting the football queue. He's doing a very nice job for them. 6 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. And we talk about Jonathan Taylor, the dominance that he's playing with at this time. I expect him to run the ball very well against this Cardinals front and expect this to be a big lead. And don't forget about the defense for the Colts.
Yeah.
They're very good in terms of getting turnovers. And that's been a problem for the Cardinals. And it may be Jacoby Brissett. Murray's beat up with that foot injury, and you have a bunch of backups in the backfield as well. So I expect the Colts to win this one and cover.
Listen, they've got, speaking of Arizona, they start off 2-0, kind of like the Saints did last year, scoring a lot of points, 20-27 respectively. They lost a tough game to the 49ers, lost a tough game to Seattle, lost a tough game to the Titans. You can make a case easily a 3-2, maybe 4-1 squad. After the Colts, they have Green Bay, Dallas, and Seattle, and the 49ers, and Jacksonville. So, this is kind of like we flashed it up when you talk about these must-win time, right, in week 6. I mean, for me, Arizona's got to show up. I think that's going to be a theme for the show today with some of these other teams. And, as we go from Arizona talking about teams that got to show up, how about the Chargers? The Chargers right now, back-to-back weeks, they had the bad loss against the Giants. They were outplayed. They had the bad loss at home to Washington. And now I'm seeing a lot of money pouring on Miami at home for a potential upset where the Chargers are laying 3.5 as a road favorite with a 3-2 mark. The Dolphins are 1-4, and the total is 43.5. And you had Tua making his comments that probably not going to sit well with a lot of fans down there in Miami where, hey, I'll throw 5 picks, I'll throw 5 touchdowns. It's okay. Win or lose, I go home to my kids. That's great, but you don't say that out loud. So, I mean, something's got to give. You and I have been talking about Miami, McDaniel, and Stephen Ross for the last month plus. This might be my look but don't touch game, but the Chargers now, after that red hot start, have cooled off.
Yes, Q, and you got to beware of that home dog. Last week, 8 teams that were underdogs were outright winners last week. So you're seeing these underdog teams, come up and bite other teams in the butt. And in a situation where the Chargers cannot look past the Miami Dolphins, they did that a couple weeks ago. You were just talking about against the New York Giants and kind of were flat in this situation where they need to kind of get right in this one. We'll see who's going to be running the football for them, whether it's Caskins or Vidal. They have some injuries in the backfield there. Herbert has got to play better, though, getting the ball downfield to Keenan Allen and the rest of those guys. A big matchup is going to be the Chargers attacking defense with Henley and the rest of those guys against Miami's front. Tua, he's going to miss Tariq Hill. They got to lean on HN. Been back and forth on this one. I do think the Chargers kind of get right and they cover that low 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you look at this game, if you kind of go inside the numbers, even from a prop standpoint, right? You got this team, Chargers should come out firing, right? So first pass attempt completed by Justin Herbert is minus 260, right? As the Chargers offense fell flat after a strong first drive last week, again, it goes on the arm of Justin Herbert. Quentin Johnson, I think, is a good play for an anytime touchdown score at plus 165. He's looking to have that bounce game after fumbling against the Commanders. He's their leading receiver. So there's some good player props to kind of hit and dive into in this game. But if the Chargers lose this game, they're in trouble, right? Because now you're talking about AFC West. Even though the Chiefs are struggling a little bit, the Chargers have the Colts, Minnesota, Titans coming up. So if they can get a win here, maybe it catapults them to a 3 out of 4 streak, and all of a sudden they're feeling pretty good about themselves at 6-3, 6-4 after 10 games. If they lose this game and fall to 3-3, listen, Miami and the Giants are not good football teams. They're just not. Commanders a little different animal because Jaden Daniels came back. But to me, I would say this is kind of a must win right now, week 6 for the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree with you. In a situation where Harbaugh's got to get his squad prepared, ready to go, they cannot look past Miami. And it's a conference game, as you're saying. They need to stack W's when they can because their schedule is kind of tougher. And I think they will find a way. But that running back position is something that's going to be watched.
Patriots, who had the big win against Buffalo. Now they go on the road against the Saints, who get their first win of the season. They were down 17-3 against the Giants, and just the Giants turned into just a turnover fest with 5 straight possessions where they turned the ball over last week. I mean, rookies do that, and then they come back and they combine for 5 touchdowns against the Eagles. Go figure. New England is a 3.5 road favorite, kind of a modest total, 45.5. I just still don't like the Saints. I think this was more about the Giants and the rookies playing like rookies in a bad spot on the road last weekend. I don't think the Saints have enough offense really to just stay in some of these games, to be quite honest. And you take away, they scored 26, but 7 came on a fumble return for a touchdown. Other than that, they've scored 13, 21, 13, 19 points. They just don't have the offensive firepower. And for that, I like New England.
Yes, it's a situation where you do got to watch the home dog again, but definitely in terms of the Saints, I think the Giants kind of they were sloppy, and they kind of handed the football to them. But the Saints are struggling defensively. Other than Cam Jordan, there's really not a lot in terms of that defense. And I think that Drake May, you're starting to see him use that dual threat ability, getting on the edge. And as long as Stevenson, the running back, is holding on to the football, he's had kind of a fumbling issues this year. But this offense is going to click. And you started seeing Diggs last week making some big plays against Buffalo. I expect him to make some against the Saints and home dog, but I do like New England covering at 3.5 in this game.
BYP presented by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Don't forget 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. That's always in the show notes alongside Lloyd Vance. I'm Rich Quiñones. This is Back Your Play, and as always, get social with us. And we always like to say that these shows for entertainment purposes only, obviously. So with that being said, we're rolling through these 1 o'clock games. We are about a quarter plus into the show. We'll hit a quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. We'll rip through the 1 o'clock games, the late games, and then, of course, the Monday night affair. And then we'll go around the league as we typically do. Keep it locked in right here to BYP. Again, alongside Lloyd Vance, I'm Rich Quiñones. And also, don't forget to follow along our good friends over at NY48 WWON. Quick timeout. We'll come back right on the other side. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quiñones here. Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us. Don't forget, follow him on X at Lloyd Vance. Does a great job. Lloyd Vance is Insider Football and Sports Radio 1029 FM, The Game, part of the Coastal Sports Digital Florida Network, as we are just ripping through these 1 o'clock games, Cleveland and Pittsburgh. I mean, ho-hum, right? So Cleveland decides we're going to trade Joe Flacco to Cincinnati. You got Gabriel. You got Sanders. Gabriel obviously is going to be the starter. He'll get the nod under center. Sanders is now as your backup. I've never heard so much talk over 4th and round draft picks, but whatever. Cleveland is a bad football team, winless on the road. Pittsburgh at home, laying 6.5 against a divisional rival. And quietly, the Steelers 3-1, coming off a bye. So they've got the Battle of Ohio is coming up. They get the Browns on Sunday, and then the following week, they also get Cincinnati. I'm just not sold on the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you also know that I think the Browns are a horrible football team. I don't like any play in this game. I mean, if I was leaning towards something, it might be the under 38.5, but I get nervous because Pittsburgh might score 20-23 in this one, and then you might get a couple of BS touchdowns late by Cleveland.
Yeah, Q, this is a divisional game. So you always got to throw everything out, and they are rivals. But the big thing is Dylan Gabriel is this is his first, his second start in the National Football League, and it's going to be on the road in Pittsburgh. Tough place to play. Obviously, the Steelers have always played pretty well in Pittsburgh against the Browns, and I expect this to happen again. The line for the Browns is pretty beat up. Expect a lot of J.J. Watt and, T.J. Watt and Highsmith to get after him, and I think that the Steelers will win this game, but that's a big number. I think it may be a field goal game where Boswell gets involved.
Just pulling up some of these numbers, the Steelers have won every regular season meeting at Cleveland at their home stadium since 2004. Notable exception, Cleveland's first round playoff stunner in 2020, a streak so long it probably predates the 41-year-old Rodgers arrival in the NFL. I don't see any numbers that really tend to stand out in this one. You look at Gabriel and his passing yards, you look at Rodgers, maybe 2+ touchdowns if you get positive numbers on that. But other than that, 6.5, 38.5, Pittsburgh should win this game. I'm certainly not going to touch this game. Cowboys and the Panthers, 1:00. Cowboys on the road against the Panthers. Dallas laying 3.5, and the total is just a touch under 49.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mike, because Carolina, they had a big win, and Bryce Young, he's starting to come along at quarterback. He's kind of clicking with Tech McMillan, and Dowdell had a great week rushing the football for him, stepping in, and Dallas, they have to be careful. They can't be complacent in terms of we got to win, and we're 2-1. They can be beat by anybody because they're defense. So been back and forth in this one. I think Dallas wins this one, and they'll cover the 3.5. Watch for a field goal situation here. I think Aubrey will win it, though.
Interesting, because now, look, everyone's looking at Dak Prescott, right? And these MVP odds, people are making a case for Baker Mayfield. For some reason, Patrick Mahomes just cracked the top 3. I'm not really sure about that, but Prescott has played probably the best football early on of his career. And we've seen that he can put up some numbers, but again, his numbers now, if you kind of find the best value, listen, Stafford's a plus 1,400. I would still take a flyer on Matthew Stafford, but Prescott right now, they're rising because he had another good performance despite closing the gap. I think he's a long shot to win the award. He's second in passing yards with 1,356, tied for third with 10 passing touchdowns. We talked about it last week. There's only 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the NFL with 10 or more passing touchdowns. But this is a game, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you're looking around, you're saying, okay, a little bit of parity, right? Washington's got some issues. Eagles got some issues. Green Bay's got some issues. Detroit's a real good team. Who do we trust? The Rams showing a little vulnerability. Cowboys need to go on the road and handle their business against the Panthers, and I think they will. I'm actually going to take them to cover the number.
Yeah, I think they will take care of business. It's not a situation where they'll have a tie. I think they will cover that number. And Dallas, they love easy wins.
They do. They absolutely do. And the Dallas Cowboy fans, I mean, they're upset because the Yankees lost. So, All right. Here's an interesting game. Seattle and Jacksonville. Jacksonville 4-1, 3-0 at home. Had that, I guess you can say franchise-altering win at home against Kansas City. Chris Jones still trying to find Trevor Lawrence. But Seattle's going on the road, and they are laying 1.5. Now, I think everyone's waiting for the other shoe to drop here with Jacksonville. I don't believe in letdowns in the NFL, but I'll say this. That was a tough loss by Seattle because of the Darnold pick late. It bounces off the DB or the wide receiver's helmet. He still played. He was pitching a perfect game up to that point. This team can score. Now, Jacksonville's defense is going to have to keep them in this game because I don't believe fire for fire, offensive power for offensive power, they can match up against Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle, under radar type team, and Jacksonville had that huge win just the other night. Trevor Lawrence played at an MVP type level, and this is going to be a fun game to watch. I've been kind of back and forth. The thing is, Jacksonville's been living off of turnovers. Devin Lloyd has all those picks, and they have lead the NFL with 14. I think Darnold does a good job protecting the football. They run it with their two-headed monster in the backfield. I think Seattle wins this one and kind of covers the number. I know it's kind of back and forth. I saw Jacksonville 1.5, so I definitely think that Seattle is going to win this game.
I think offensively, there's a lot of plays I like. I like Darnold and his passing yards. I like Darnold with 2+ touchdowns. I just like Seattle on this spot. I like him on the money line. It might be one of my stronger plays of the weekend. A team that we might start to say is cooked, the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, this is it. This is do or die. Obviously, the issue with Lamar Jackson and his injuries not good. Rams are laying 7.5 on the road, where you know Baltimore's always been a tough team to beat at home, but this shows you the importance of the backup quarterback, and you can ill afford to lose your quarterback. But it's not even that offensively. Defensively, I just can't recall a Baltimore Ravens team they are historically bad defensively. I mean, they are giving up a ton of yards and points.
Yeah, and a lot of people point to injuries like Matabike going out with the neck injury, but Q, something's missing with this group. They're Orr's the defensive coordinator, and he's got to fix this thing. And you talk about Baltimore, that was always a calling card, and everybody thought, okay, Ray Lewis, and they'd get after people, but this defense is nowhere near that. I expect that the Rams move the football on them with Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, and they have big game. That is a big number to cover, especially with the Ravens, as you said, so prohibitively tough at home. But you make me make a pick, I'll say, all right, Rams, and they cover the number. And then we saw Houston go in there and beat them pretty bad a couple weeks ago, and we'll see if it's going to happen again.
So, just some numbers. You mentioned Ravens defensive coordinator Zach Orr. The Ravens have matched the worst start in their team's 30-year existence, primarily because they haven't been able to keep teams out of the end zone. The opposition, the defense has allowed the most points, 177, rushing yards, 732, touchdown passes, 13 in the first 5 games of any season in team history. They rank at the bottom of nearly every major statistical category. I don't know how people thought, including us, that this team had the shortest odds to win the Super Bowl. Did we fail to look at the defense and recognize how historically bad this defense is right now? I mean, you're allowing just the dregs of the NFL to move the football and put up points. I mean, you talk about the Texans with a get right game, they put up 44 points, and they're not the best team. Now, if that's the case, and Stafford's going to sit back in the pocket comfortably, I love the Rams in this spot. They should be able to put up 35.
Yeah, Q, a lot of it has to do with on paper. They had Hamilton, and they have all the names, Wiggins and all these guys, but injuries have decimated them. But you can only say so much in terms of injuries. It's got to be next man up, and they have not gotten it done. Even all the way back to week one, they just kind of struggled. So Orr has a lot to clean up there. John Harbaugh, maybe he gets involved on that side of the football, but maybe if they get some of these guys back from injuries, it can help the Ravens. But I don't think it's getting better anytime soon.
I think it's a wash. The season's a wash.
Right now, they're saying maybe Lamar comes back from the hamstring injury after the bye and they can get together. But they've dug a big hole. They're 1-4, and we've seen teams in the past. Look at the Bengals when they started 0-3 last season. They just couldn't string enough wins together late to get in the playoffs. So right now, it's not looking good for the Ravens.
No, it's not. It's not looking good at all. Speaking of which, avert your eyes. Titans, Ravens, Raiders. Something has to give. 2-1-4. Man, the Raiders stink. I mean, it's no wonder Max Crosby wants out. I mean, Geno Smith is horrible.
Leads NFL with 9 interceptions through 2 last week, and you just wonder, and it's like, oh, did they make a mistake, handed him the bag, and decided for him to be their starting quarterback? Now, they do have Genty. I think Max Crosby does play pretty well, and the Titans, they got their big win. Are they placated? They haven't done a good job in terms of protecting Ward all season. I think Crosby and those guys get some pressure on him. Ward makes some rookie mistakes, and the Raiders win this one. The line's pretty low. I think it's 4.5. I think the Raiders cover that number.
Any chance that they would bench Smith and go to Pickett?
It could. He's making a lot of bad mistakes. I know Pete Carroll was with Geno Smith in the past. It's kind of given him a long leash, but these interceptions are game killers. They'd be smart to just lean on Genty and kind of go from there, get the ball to Tucker and the rest of the guys downfield. But Brock Bowers is probably not going to play in this game, has a knee injury. That's a big injury for the Raiders.
Line's sitting right around 4, totals 41.5. Cincinnati makes the move. We said it 3 weeks ago. They should have traded for Russell Wilson or Winston and called the Giants. They didn't. I don't understand. If you're calling Cleveland, why don't you try to get Gabriel or Sanders, right? A young quarterback. Instead, they're bringing in a veteran Flacco. They believe he gives them the best chance to, quote, win games. Jake from State Farm Browning experiment is done. Look, Flacco played with a bad offensive line. It's not better in Cincinnati. They're on the road. One of the largest lines of the night and maybe of the season. 425 CBS National Window kickoff. Green Bay laying 14.5. That might close at 16 against Cincinnati.
Yeah, but Flacco beat him a couple weeks ago when he
I
was
know.
at 13-10, which is, it's not going to happen, Q. And it is a situation where that offensive line is not protecting anybody. You bring in a 40-something-year-old quarterback, and you wonder about Micah Parsons and the rest of the guys on that defense getting after Joe Flacco. Now, Junkins is running the ball particularly well. Well, that's for Cleveland. But the Bengals do have Jamar Chase and the rest of those guys downfield. They can make some plays. And in terms of Green Bay coming off of a bye, they're going to try to get right with Jordan Love and the rest of these guys. But that's a huge number, Q. I think Packers win this game, but I don't think they cover, 14.5 to 16 points. It's just too much.
I just don't understand Cincinnati's line of thinking. Like, why at this point, like, why not trade for a younger quarterback knowing Joe Burrow's injury history? I mean, we can't escape it. We got to start talking about that.
Yeah, Q, and they're still hoping he'll come back by December, but by then their season's going to implode. They're just trying to bring anything to light a fire under this team. But Brown's not been running the football effectively well for them. The defense has Hendrickson and not much else. They do have Chase and Higgins, but Flacco's going to throw the football down the field to them. But the thing is, he also can make some mistakes. So yeah, it's a bit odd who they brought in. And Taylor, you got to wonder, is he on the hot seat there? Duke Tobin, the de facto general manager as well.
If you're going to play anything, play Jordan Love passing yards. Pass for 250 yards per game, 6.5 more than Sunday's over-under has been set in 4 matchups this season. He has thrown for more than 243.5 yards twice. Now, here's the number that stands out. He's taken on the 29th ranked pass defense. They allow, speaking of Cincinnati, 259 yards per game. Packers rank 11th in pass offense, 232, 11th in pass defense. So Flacco's sitting there. If you see his numbers teetering around $190 to 200, they're allowing 205. So again, they have a pretty good pass defense. I think they're also going to get to Flacco. I always talk about special teams defensive touchdowns. And when you got, a veteran guy, journeyman quarterback, a young quarterback, quarterback going against a good defense or the backup coming in, here's a strong play. So you can get some pretty good value for Green Bay with their defensive or special team score in this one, because I think Flacco's due to throw a pick, maybe a pick 6 in this one, especially if they're trying to throw themselves back in the game and they're down 17, like you said, maybe in the third quarter. So here's a good matchup. 49ers and Tampa Bay, both squads 4-1. Tampa Bay, they are laying 3.5. Their only loss of the season was against the Eagles. And of course, Mayfield plays so well, but then had the red zone pick late in that game. The 49ers 3-0 on the road, coming off that big win against the Rams, albeit it was McVay's blunder that kind of cost them. 49ers had multiple chances to lose that game, and the Rams had a lot of chances to win that game. I love what Mac Jones is doing. I told you this. Ride the hot hand of Mac Jones. Now, he's going to be tested, and I think this game has the makings to be one of those 33-31. I think this game is going to be an absolute shootout, and it's one of the reasons it also has one of the highest totals aside from the Lions and Chiefs on Sunday night. Tampa Bay 3.5. The total is 47.5.
You got to watch that half in this one, because I think McLaughlin, who's kicking very well for the Bucs, he's going to get involved. I think Tampa wins it on a field goal, but as you were saying, pretty close game. And you got to watch Christian McCaffrey in this one.
Yep.
The Niners have really been leaning on him, a ton of touches for him. on the Bucks, their defense is Winfield Jr. and Vita Vea in the middle, but Levante David, let's face it, getting a little old there, and they may try to hit that middle against them. So I expect a back and forth game. But we talked about earlier how well Baker Mayfield's playing at an MVP type level. I think that he'll do just enough, and they'll kick a field goal to win the game. But you got to watch that half.
You mentioned Christian McCaffrey has hit the rushing yards under in 8 of his last 9 games, plus 6.5 units. So you're looking at about 67% return on your investment. He's also hit the longest rush under in his last 5 games. I think he's due for a couple runs over 15, 16, 17 yards. Baker Mayfield, those are pretty good props to play when it comes to Mayfield. Anytime touchdown, scrambling, passing. Bucky Irving as well, catching the ball out of the backfield. So you got some good plays in this one. I would also look at second half money line for the 49ers, especially if this is a tight game. I like the 49ers in this spot. I do. I think they're going to force a couple turnovers, but I also think this is going to be a high scoring game. They might not win, but they're going to cover. And if I think they're going to cover and keep it close, then I'm certainly going to take them on the money line, contrary to what I just said moments ago. Sunday Night Football, high scoring total on this one. The Lions and the Chiefs. I mean, this might be the last stand for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? I mean, let's just, again, they've got issues. And I thought they maybe need to trade for defense, maybe bring in another playmaker, another running back. They just have not been able to get that ground game going. When your quarterback is the club's leading rusher, that's not a good thing. We saw what happened against Jacksonville. Now they get a Lions team that is just absolutely clicking on all cylinders, especially offensively. In this one, let me give you the number. Kansas City is a 2.5 home favorite. So that tells me that the betting public still has no belief in Detroit going on the road.
Interesting game here, Q. And this is a game I thought was going to be a Super Bowl matchup a couple years ago, and depends what Jared Goff shows up. If he's clicking and not turning the football over, they could easily win this game. And their two-headed monster, Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield, they've been running very well. You talk about Kansas City and their struggles, particularly last week against Jacksonville and stopping their opponents. Mahomes has gotten that pick six last week just killed him. He's got to protect the football, but he's kind of out there on his own until Rashid comes back after this week. So I think that's a big addition for them. But you're right, all hands on deck for them. Worthy's got to make a couple plays for him. Been back and forth on this one. Kansas City typically plays well at home, so I'm thinking of going with them with a Butker field goal. But he's been kind of inconsistent of late.
Yeah, and he had the poor kickoff the other night that gave Jacksonville the short field. I mean, that's a veteran mistake. That's unacceptable. I just think the Lions offensively, I don't think Kansas City can match them. Kansas City's going to have to turn the ball over a couple times, and I don't see Jared Goff doing that. We talk about some of these quarterbacks that should be in the MVP conversation. Jared Goff has 12 touchdowns, 2 picks, and you can make a case that both those picks were not his fault. He hasn't been sacked, too. I mean, he's rarely been touched. So the offensive line has done a really nice job. I like the Lions in this game. I think they put that nail in Kansas City's coffin.
Yeah, it's going to be a coaching matchup as well. You got Andy Reid maybe has some tricks up his sleeve, but the Chiefs got to find a way to attack that Lions secondary. Watch that one because their secondary is pretty beat up. So it's going to be interesting. Good watch there.
All right, we got the double dip. Always the sexy double dip on Monday night. The Bills and the Falcons. That is a 7:15 kickoff in Atlanta. Bears and Commanders. Now, again, people are going to watch that because obviously last year when they played, their seasons both went in opposite directions. The Hail Mary by Washington catapults them into their playoff run. The Bears go south. We'll get into that momentarily. The Bills are laying 4.5. I think this team is absolutely pissed off. I think they're ticked off. They know that was a bad loss to New England. I would not want to be Atlanta in this spot. I'm not a Falcons fan. I'm not a Penix fan. I think their offense is, I don't think they utilized their weapons. I think Buffalo goes into Atlanta and they absolutely just waterboard the Atlanta Falcons and they cover this 4.5 easily.
Yeah, other than the home dog thing, yeah, I definitely am a strong believer in the Bills in this one. They're going to be angry. Expect a lot of Cook in this game. They kind of underutilized him last week. Allen's going to probably spread the football around. Watch Kincaid for an anytime touchdown. He's playing very well at the tight end position. And and then he loves Shakir. So I think that the Bills got to find their defense, though. They got to find a way to stop Bijan Robinson. He's going to be the main cog for the Falcons. They're probably going to hand the football off to him a lot. And the thing is, Penix, very inconsistent, and I expect Sean McDermott to kind of confuse him with some blitzes. So Bills win this one, and they cover the 4.5.
I think this is also the game. Look, beside week one, when Josh Allen threw for close to 400 yards, he's thrown for $150 against the Jets, 213 against the Dolphins, 209 against the Saints. Okay, 253 against New England, had a bad pick, had to scramble a lot. His legs are doing more damage this year than his arm to start the season. I think passing wise, this is a get right game for Josh Allen. And there's some really good value with some of these player props when you start talking about his passing yards, 228 and a half over under for this matchup, throwing more yards per game this year at 243. To me, he wakes up a little bit. So his passing yards, I think he goes over 228. And I also believe he hits the rushing prop over 33 and a half. So again, you're looking at, I got to lay 114 and win back 100, but I'm still going to do it because I think these are two strong plays.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Josh Allen trying to protect that MVP award from last season. And I really like that rushing one. I think he definitely hits the 33.
Just a reminder, Vikings and the Texans have a bye week. The Bears and the Commanders will close out week 6. Monday Night Football, Washington laying 4.5. And again, the storyline, they will keep reverting back to last year and the Hail Mary and the DB looking around, waving to the crowd. And then, obviously we know what happens. And Washington goes one way, the Bears go the other way. Jaden Daniels, right? Knocks off the rust, comes back. You go on the road, you beat the Chargers. I know that it hasn't been the type of start to the season that Washington has wanted, but look, they get a win. They're 4-2, and they're right there in the NFC East.
Yeah, Q, this is a home game, and it's an important game because they need to get this win to kind of catch up to the Eagles. The Eagles lost, and then they would be right there behind them in terms of the divisional standings. And I do agree with you that last week he got right in terms. Jaden Daniels got right in terms of beating the Chargers. That was a good road win for him, and you expect JCM to have a good game for them against that Bears defense. So Caleb Williams, we'll see what he can do, but I definitely think that Daniels and Washington cover that number.
The over in this game is 52.5. So we have one. I'm just going back. That's the highest total and the lowest total this weekend, if memory serves me correct, Pittsburgh and Cleveland. 52.5 actually is the second highest total. Detroit and the Chiefs. I bring it up because we've seen a lot of points being scored. Typically, we say defenses are ahead of the offenses, but if you go back even to last week, 49ers and Rams hit the total. Raiders and the Colts hit the total. Cowboys and the Jets hit the total. Dolphins and the Panthers hit the total. Texans and the Ravens hit the total. Titans and the Cardinals hit the total. Bucks and Seattle obviously hit the total. Lions and Cincinnati. Like, you see where I'm going with this? Kansas City and Jacksonville went over the total. I think there's value to start playing the total in some of these games, even if you're a little hesitant.
Yeah, in 9 games they hit the over, and it's a situation where scoring's up, and a lot of times teams kind of go in that preventive shell late. You know what I mean? Once they secured the win, they're like, all right, let the other team get some yards, maybe what we call garbage touchdown or something, and that helps the over. And they're getting these lines right in terms of these. A lot of times the half a point there or mind you or something like that. So yeah, try to look at the overs.
All right, don't forget BYP is for entertainment purposes. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we talked about Arizona. Must-win time week 6. Which team or teams, in your estimation, Lloyd Vance, have to step up this weekend? Desperation time, panic mode setting in, and get that W.
Yeah, I think the Chargers definitely a team you got to say they need to get a win to kind of get them back on track, because losing a couple games in a row, a lot of people are starting to whisper, are they as good as we thought? And they have some injury issues. So they need to go down to Miami, take care of business, make it a business trip. So that's one of the teams I'm looking at. And obviously, we just talked about Detroit's is a tough matchup for Kansas City, but this is a must-win situation for their season to stay alive. They're 2-3. Patrick Mahomes had that bad interception the other night. They definitely need to step up against Detroit.
When you look at what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles and the bad loss to the Giants on Thursday Night Football, AJ Brown, he's good for a quote here and there talking about, I don't recall a meeting which was confirmed again and went on the record by Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. I mean, there were a couple throws Hurts missed, obviously, in that game. I think he had Smith streaking down, which would have been like an 80-something yard touchdown toss. But I mentioned this a couple weeks ago during on Q, that the offense is just broken, and they just don't have an identity. And another conversation that needs to be had is not only the offensive line, but Saquon Barkley has really done nothing this year. I mean, his rushing numbers are historically bad compared to the 5 games, 6 games to start last season. So I kind of, I want to kind of back you in the corner right now. When you look at this offense, who's the biggest? I mean, who's the biggest culprit, and why do you believe this offense has been so stagnant?
Yeah, they all got a hand in it, but I think Patullo, the new offense coordinator, I don't know if he has the pulse of this team. They're good one half and bad the next. They have not played a full 60 minutes the whole season, so I'll put it on him first, and then you got to put Sirianni. Sirianni hired Patullo to come in there and be the guy after Kellen Moore went down to the Saints, and he just has not gotten it done. And on the field, Jalen Hurts, he's a guy that loves to play with a lead Q. I was watching that game last night. If he has to drive his team from behind, it's difficult for him. And it's a situation with the offensive line is not where it was last year. It's very beat up, and they had to get a new guy in at guard, and they're just not as cohesive. So that's factored into this whole Saquon thing. So a lot of pieces, but not a win's not just a win. You know what I mean? And you saw the last couple of games that the Eagles are kind of struggling.
Is he a front running quarterback? Like, I've defended him for so long. And if you almost look, the tush push, that was utterly ridiculous. The 4 straight plays, I'm over and I'm tired of it. Just, again, I know I keep saying stop it, but I'm starting to believe this perception now, this narrative around Hurts is he's a front running quarterback. Everything's got to work well for him to open up the offense. And as you mentioned, he's missing some of these wide open throws. He's stepping into the throw, but these are 10, 15 yards off the mark. It is crazy. You have a run, you don't lose a game, you're Super Bowl MVP, and we want to put you in that category. Now, right now, he's not playing like a top 5 quarterback. He's just not.
Yeah, he played great in the Super Bowl, but got to turn the page. Every season is different. And you talk about Lawrence, you talk about Goff, Drake May, all these guys have passed them in terms of the way they're playing. And the thing is with Hurts, he's got the Lamborghini. I mean, when you look at the Eagles roster, roster for roster, the Eagles have one of the
Well,
best.
how about the pick? How about the pick? I mean, Flott basically played it, jumped it, right? And that's an ill-advised throw. I mean, you have to throw. He put places that ball inside as opposed to out. I mean, someone hit me up during the show the other day and said, Q, I can't figure this guy out. Like, I can't rank or assess him. He basically said, my kid was asking me about Jalen Hurts, and I almost had to draw it out for him. Like, I can't figure him out. Sometimes he looks so good, and then other times he looks so bad.
Yeah, in the playoffs last year was dynamite, but now he's looking like a one-read quarterback to me, Q. He's looking at his first read. And you talk about that interception where he's eyeballing the receiver and the guy jumped it. You know what I mean? He's looking at that first read and then he's looking to run. He's got to diversify. And then when he is throwing it, he's kind of forcing it into the A.J. Brown. And you have to factor in, this whole as the world turns situation, if that's going on the field now. So a lot of foreshadowing things with the Eagles. Yes, they're 4-2, but they got a lot to clean up. And they're the hunted now rather than hunter.
The other question I wanted to ask you is, AJ Brown, uh, you know, is it getting to the point? I know I said it a couple of days ago, but when he's sitting there in the locker room and he's not recalling a meeting and just kind of being coy about it and just being goofy, can do you envision a scenario where the Eagles are like, all right, you know what? we milked it for what it's worth. He's an all pro. We got a Super Bowl win. Thank you very much. But we're trading him, man, because now it's just becoming a distraction and a headache.
Well, November 4th is the trade deadline, and that's something they could kick around. And the Eagles are going to have to get some cornerback help because Hugh Mitchell is hurt. But I expect them to step away from him, but at the end of the season, Q. I think they'll keep him around because you know football teams, they want all hands on deck, and you never know when somebody's going to get hurt. You need that depth. But yeah, it's crazy how you're talking about a guy that's paid so well in terms of the other receivers that he's malcontent. He's just not happy, and they may have to trade him and step away from him. But it's a situation that's not going to get any better anytime soon.
I mean, I know there were a couple reports out there, mock trade that they would send him to Pittsburgh for a 2026 second round pick, 2027 second round pick. I mean, I'll say this, it's not going to happen, but Giants need a wide receiver. I mean, that kid played well. The journeyman kid played well the other night, and Wandale Robinson is a good slot receiver, and they've got some good tight ends. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I want to take AJ Brown. I just think AJ Brown in Philadelphia has run its course.
It's definitely looking that way, and I expect by the off season that Howie Roseman will move him for some draft picks heading into the draft. But it's a situation where they're kind of stuck with him, and he makes a lot of money, so it may be difficult to trade him.
Yeah, I tell you, man, it's you win one game, and it does change the complexion of how you're viewed. I mean, think about this. The Giants have had such a hard time winning at home over the last decade, winning NFC East games, winning in prime time. Giant fans hate prime time games. They want their 1 o'clock games, that 1 o'clock window. And you saw this quarterback last night make plays. I mean, scrambling and juking all pro linebackers. I mean, this kid has no fear. And I'll tell you something else that I really liked. You know, he's tight with Theo Johnson, the tight end, and Johnson kind of ran the wrong route, and Dart kind of gave it to him. Scatterboot gets that taunting penalty, which was a joke of a call, and Dart basically is like, what the hell are you doing? You're talking about a 22-year-old kid right now that is manning the show, and then you throw in the nut job Scatterboo, who you gotta love this kid, right? Just trucking people. I mean, Adoree Jackson making a business decision already in October. The perception now, Eagles are a couple plays away from being a 1-5, 2-3 team, and the Giants beat the Cowboys, you beat the Saints. Maybe we're talking about a 5-1, 4-2 New York Giant team, but that was a signature win the other night, and it's. I got to be careful how I say this. That win, well, I don't have to be careful how I say it. I believe that win just saved Brian Daboll's job.
Well, Q, and he's lit a fire underneath Team Jackson Dart. He's coming there, and you can see how much Daboll is on the same page with him. When Russell Wilson came in and threw that bad pass, he's like, get him out of there. I want my guy in there. I want this kid in there. Get him in. And the fun thing is, Q, they're going to play at Philadelphia in Week 8 in a couple weeks. So we're going to see if this is a real deal. But I agree with you that Daboll, he's thanking his lucky stars that this kid, Jackson Dart, is looking like the real deal and has really sparked the team.
Now, look, again, he might get hit with a little bit of fine because, again, you go in the medical tent, you're going after the doctor. You can't do that, right? You just can't do that. But I think right now, Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo, and more importantly, Jackson Dart, they are saving Brian Daboll's job. I really don't think at this point, look, the Saints loss was a bad loss. And this is what happens. Rookies play like rookies. Think about it. This is the NFL. It's cynical. One weekend, 2 weekends ago, Dart and Scatterboo are the story. Positive. Saints game, they have turnovers. Fumble return for touchdown. Not holding on football. Bad fumble. Pick. 5 turnovers. 5 straight possessions. Then fast forward another week at home against a division rival that has basically just dog walked you for the last 10 to 15 years. You dominate them. And who are the two culprits in a positive fashion? The running back, Cam Scatterboo, the rookie quarterback, Jackson Dart, taking New York by storm, combined it for 5 touchdowns, a toast of the town. And they just fit these two, right? So it's amazing the narrative, the perception starts to change. But the fact that they're playing harder and he's so fired up and he's showing that passion right, rejuvenated on the sideline. And I'm not the biggest Dayball fan. I thought him and Shane should have been out of there after last year. Mara up there fighting the good fight with cancer. Joe Shane in there, the crowd actually cheering for the Giants. You dismantle the Super Bowl champs at home on a Thursday night. That win, I think that win saved him. I think that win gave him such a longer leash right now where now he can sit there and justify, see, this is why I'm going to the kid. Give me another year with this kid. Give me a contract extension if we turn around and won 5, 6, 7 games, which is not out of the ordinary. But that win by the Giants last night, I think that solidified Daboll. I think he's safe the rest of the way.
It definitely was a magic moment for that franchise. And Mara was there. He took it all in. You know what I mean? And I don't think he wants to change coaches because a lot of people saying, oh, McAdoo and Judge and all these guys, he ran through so many coaches
Yep.
in so many short years, you know what I mean, that he doesn't want to switch horses. And the thing is, Dayball's finally, maybe his offense is clicking and he's found the right guy in his trigger man in Jackson Dart. And you're right. Maybe they will spur him to save a job, which you and I thought at the beginning of the season, we said Dayball going, Joe Shane going to general manager. But right now, they both are extremely happy about the way these kids are playing.
Yeah, and they gave the game ball to John Mara, which was great. And I said this is why you start the quarterback. Everyone told me you can't do it. And I kept saying sooner rather than later, sooner rather than later. But this is what happens. And it's only in the sport of football when you make the quarterback change. It can just galvanize a team. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is a playoff team. I'm not. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're going to win 5, 6, 7 games. They might win 5. They might be competitive, maybe squeeze out 6. Who knows? They could beat Denver. But now they're saying, look, we're not afraid of the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, that's a divisional win against the defending Super Bowl champs. They got the Patriots. They got the Vikings. They got the Raiders. Those are wins right there. They might win 5, 6 games. And if they're competitive, that strengthens his case. And we haven't really even talked about what they're doing defensively. Burns, Thibodeau, Carter, even though Lawrence has been quiet. Defensively, they're playing really well. Offensive line doing a hell of a job. Illuminor, Thomas, he's like a wall. They're keeping the quarterback upright. So I almost feel the win against the Eagles, because they didn't get blown out, they blew them out, and it was prime time to snap a 10 game losing streak on Thursday Night Football. To me, I just think, if they would have gotten blown out, the story today is he's not going to make it past October. But because they won that game, and you're seeing the juice with the quarterback and the offense now, I think he's basically, they might turn around at the end of the year and give him a 2-year contract extension. I'm not saying that's the right move, but this is what happens when, you show some fight and you're playing competitive football. And I don't believe that they're a playoff team, but I'll say this, they put the Eagles in the NFL on notice because they're the third youngest team in the NFL. They're the third team in the NFL.
And all they got to do is look across the locker room at the other team in that stadium, the Jets, who are not playing well and they seem undisciplined and there's no excitement there. What's there to get excited about and see, the other alternative. So, I think this definitely was a big moment for the Giants, and we'll see how they go from there.
Let me get into 2 other quick things before we wrap it up. We mentioned that Gabriel is going to get the start. Sanders is going to be the backup. Okay. He's kind of saying all the right things, right? Kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, because now he's quarterback number 2. And obviously, if this kid struggles or gets hurt, he's going to be in there. Is this do you believe this is a scenario where Dillon Gabriel will get a quarter, a half? Can we envision a scenario on Sunday where the Browns are down by 17 and Gabriel gets benched and Sanders comes in?
Q, I think they're going to give Gabriel's opportunity. He played pretty well last week over in London against the Vikings and looked like he had control of offense. Obviously, we talked earlier in the week. I did not like his arm strength, but it's a tough assignment for him going against the Steelers. I expect a lot of pressure against him. Maybe he's a smallish quarterback. You don't wish anything on anybody, but he takes a wrong hit, he could be out of the game. And he was very injury prone in college too, where he had a couple knee surgeries. So Sanders is going to get his opportunity, saying and doing all the right things. But Cleveland is just a mess overall. So I think eventually next 2 weeks or so, he will get his chance.
All right, don't forget, as always, you can capture us every Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 12 p.m. on NY48, WWON. And of course, this is Back Your Play for entertainment purposes only. Gambling problem on 1-800-GAMBLER. We talked about the must win for teams in week 6, gave you a little quarterback talk, talked about what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles right now in the AFC. Who's the class of the AFC?
I'll definitely stick with the Buffalo Bills. I think that was a divisional loss to New England. They kind of got caught up in the whole Sunday night football thing, but I think it's a chance for them to kind of get right this week in a tough game. But I think that Josh Allen's playing at MVP level, so I say they're still at the top of the AFC.
And then let's go to the NFC right now. Is it Detroit Lions?
Ooh, I thought it was the Eagles, but we sure got our answer the other night. Detroit, if they can go into Kansas City and get that win, they definitely have taken a step forward. They have a lot of offensive weapons. I talked about earlier, though, about the injuries already on their defensive backfield. But yeah, right now, I would probably say, yeah, Detroit's up there. And don't forget about Tampa Bay Bucks playing very well with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, that was just a crazy win, back and forth against Seattle. They're a high scoring team. Tampa Bay is. They're fun to watch. You can definitely put a little coin in the pocket for that. All right, as we start to wrap it up, I want to remind everyone you can catch Lloyd live Monday 8 to 9. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football and Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game. Give him a follow on social media at Lloyd Vance. He's always kind enough to join me during the week on Q, especially during our Football Friday edition, and of course during the NFL season as a co-host of Back Your Play with Q. We also want to tell you about our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase. Very easy to do in the show notes. BYP20. Check out the affiliate link. And now that the weather is getting a little colder, a little nipply, right? A little chilly out there, a little hot toddy time. You got your fresh roasted coffee. It is crazy, right? 6 weeks of the NFL. You got college football. You got the debacle going on. I'll ask you this. We got about a minute before we close it out. This whole nonsense with Belichick and UNC and maybe looking for an out, and the ship is sinking right now. The rats are running, scurrying around the Titanic. I mean, is Belichick going to make it an entire season? I told you I didn't think he was going to last an entire season in UNC.
Well, his kids are on his staff. Maybe he'll let one of his sons take
Sure.
over. But Q, I think, yeah, he'll finish out the season, but he's finding out how hard college football is in terms of getting these kids cohesively together, transfers and everything. It's all about recruiting. And at his age, you got to wonder, does he really want to do that?
Yeah. I mean, the NFL, who knows if he's going to ever try to get back there and, try to go for Shula's record, which, it's an argument for another day now is, or maybe did we over-evaluate Belichick as the GOAT when it came to greatest of all time as a head coach? Who knows? So, all right, as we start wrapping it up, don't forget you can get social with me at RichQonQ on X, on IG, TikTok, RichQ on Mike, the YouTube channel at RichQonQ. Also, don't forget later on the week, Tropical Bets Ahora. That'll be on the Channel 82 in Bermuda. We'll take a look at some of the Caribbean lines, sports gambling lines, and betting lines as well. But as we always like to say as we close it out, my friend Lloyd Vance, if you say it, you better play it. And if you back it, you're gonna stack it. There you got, that's my guy right there with the overs, the over king as we're hitting them. That'll do it for this edition of Back Your Play BYP with Q. Again, special thanks to our good friend Lloyd Vance. I'm Rich Quiñones. Everyone, enjoy week 6 of the NFL. We'll talk to you on Q later on in the week and the weekend. But Lloyd, have a good sports weekend. Enjoy the games. Always appreciate you, pal.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me on.